Out. My lips all busted. This week we're talking about psychosocial structure of middle adulthood. Next week we talk about me because I'm an older adult. I'm 75 years old. These guys only go up to 65, and I'm 75. So here we go. Here we go. Psychosocial development during middle adulthood. Let's do her. There you go. The reason I have him fishing is because at age 65, a lot of people retire. One of the things we can see from his hand, usually older people will have liver spots to some extent on the backs of their hands. This guy looks like he's a little younger than that. People generally perceive themselves as younger than their actual age, which is linked to better well-being and life satisfaction. And this perceived gap increases as we age. And that's the way I keep telling people I'm 75 years old, but I feel like I'm 35 years old. So I know I can't run as fast as I did when I was younger, but I just don't feel old. I don't have aches and pains that I'm aware of anyway. Upper middle class individuals usually describe middle age as a period of greatest productivity. Blue-collar individuals are more likely to describe it as a period of slowing down, physical weakening, or becoming a has-been. By age 40, blue-collar workers are likely to consider themselves middle-aged, whereas higher socioeconomic status men often do not consider themselves middle-aged until the early 50s. And of course, I still don't feel middle-aged, and I'm way, way older than that. A normative life event is a life transition that occurs within a restricted time period, such as marriage, children leaving home, or retirement. A non-normative life event is one that occurs at any point in life, like 9/11 or January 6th, the Iraq War, or the Civil Rights Movement. And of course, since I've lived for 75 years, I've got tons of non-normative life events that I can talk about. Vietnam War, Korean War. When I was very young. The Cuban Missile Crisis was in 1961. The Bay of Pigs. All those elections of individuals fighting all that stuff. It's really there's a lot. There's just a lot. Life has been really full. Erickson's midlife crisis is generativity versus stagnation. Generativity requires expanding interests and developing a deep concern for the establishment and nurturance of the next generation. It involves creating a personal legacy that can serve as an enduring symbol of one's own existence. Stagnation results in life no longer feeling purposeful or having long-term meaning. Generativity appears to increase in importance and strength up through middle adulthood. It may be expressed through nurturing, teaching, mentoring, leading, and promoting the next generation, as this lady is doing with these children. The term midlife crisis refers to radical changes within the personality associated with the adult's re-examination of goals, priorities, and life accomplishments as the midpoint of life is passed. Many researchers see no evidence that midlife crisis exists. Others see midlife as a time of transition, though not necessarily of crisis. And I don't know what kind of crisis this guy's in. He's driving a Porsche. Estimates of midlife crisis are only 2 to 5%. Any upheaval due to midlife crisis tends to be in conjunction with other life events, such as a divorce. Depression and other signs of stress and crisis do not increase during middle adulthood, and rates of suicide actually go down. Midlife is merely another period of transition. And here's another guy with a sports car. Here's another old fart with a sports car. And there's an old fart with a sports car. His is yellow and his is red. Hundreds of studies have been done to find out if personality traits change as people age. Researchers have found little effect of age on the personality dimensions of men or women, African Americans, or whites. In their 40s, women increased in confidence and social assertiveness, enabling them to reassess their social projects and find new direction. This reassessment created turmoil for some, but turmoil was not universal. Helson found 3 types of change among women in midlife: normative change, change associated with different personality types, and change associated with roles. Although divorce rates are relatively high, between 50 and 60% of first marriages last 40 years. And I've been married to my wife for 46 years. So there you go. Is that right? Yeah, 1979. People typically marry for the first time and most often remarry as young adults. Middle-aged adults who newly marry or remarry face similar issues of marriage formation. Carstensen et al., 1995, compared the emotional behavior of middle-aged and older adults in long-term marriage. Couples were recorded while they engaged in 3 conversational interactions, discussing events of the day, discussing an area of continuing disagreement in their marriage, discussing a mutually agreed on pleasant topic. Older adult couples were more affectionate than middle-aged couples. Middle-aged couples were coded as displaying more interest, humor, anger, and disgust. Family stress was highly correlated with strain for dual-earner families. 1/3 of the young families reflected high role strain between occupational and family demands for both partners, compared to fewer than 10% of the middle-aged and older couples. This is probably due to the intensity of the demands of establishing new careers and parenting young children. When one partner, regardless of gender, had a high workload or a change to a higher workload, the marital satisfaction of the other partner subsequently decreases. Some studies indicate that middle-aged and older marriages are happier than those in the earlier stages. Marital satisfaction appears to follow a curvilinear path over the family life cycle, starting high during the honeymoon, dropping sharply after the birth of the first child, reaching an all-time low when the children are adolescents, and increasing when the children leave home and the couple retires. Keith and Schaefer found that wives and husbands in dual-earner families responded differently to the strain of balancing the demands of home and work. Wives reported distress when their husbands experienced competing demands, while husbands reported distress when their wives spent large amounts of time at work. There is evidence that when men hold highly traditional expectations of gender roles and are married to women with more modern expectations, there is substantially more conflict and lower ratings of marital satisfaction. The presence of younger children at home creates demands that lower both marital interaction and marital happiness for couples. This decline in marital satisfaction following the birth of a child is true for all types of couples, but is buffered when the pregnancy was planned and when the couple had high levels of satisfaction pre-pregnancy. People in long-term happy marriages report increasing satisfaction over time, with a dip during the child-rearing years. Women's marital satisfaction increases throughout midlife and into late life, due in part to increasing freedom that comes with children leaving the home. Levinson, Carstensen, and Gottman in 1993 found that children were rated as the largest source of marital conflict for middle-aged couples and only the 4th in importance for older couples. Wives' report of marital and personal satisfaction is highly predictive of their husband's marital satisfaction over the course of midlife. Financial stress is one important factor that brings on decline in marital satisfaction. Other sources of conflict that middle-aged couples rated significantly higher than older couples included money, religion, and recreation. The research that exists suggests that homosexual partnerships are very similar to heterosexual partnerships. Differences between heterosexual and homosexual relationships are few and oftentimes suggest that homosexual couples experience added benefits. Gay and lesbian couples are more likely to split household work and are more likely to resolve disagreements in a beneficial manner. Gottman et al. In 2003 found that same-sex couples engaged in more positive behaviors during their interactions than heterosexual couples. During disagreements, same-sex couples were more likely to start a discussion positively, influencing the other partner to respond positively, while heterosexual couples initiated these discussions negatively. These findings show increased equity within same-sex partnerships. Although marital satisfaction tends to increase among long-term married couples, divorce does occur. Between 1990 and 2015, divorce rates among those 50 and older more than doubled, with those who had been previously married divorcing at a rate twice that of those in their first marriage. Most divorces occur before middle adulthood. Only 25% of recent separations and divorces occurred among women over age 40. For those who do not remarry, divorce represents entry into a lifetime single status, which has been linked to poorer physical health and increased risk for depression. The younger a woman is when she divorces and the fewer children she has, the more likely she is to remarry. This reflects in part the decrease in the number of potential marriage partners. For women, separation and divorce usually lower the standard of living significantly. This is especially true while children still live in the home. Because 30% of mother-only families live in poverty, divorce has a substantial impact on the quality of life for children. Divorced women with children face greater risk of depression than women without children, and this impact is greater among women with young children. Among women without children, the impact of divorce does not demonstrate the same long-lasting negative consequences, particularly if the woman initiates divorce. While financial strain and loneliness are common consequences of divorce in midlife, many people in midlife note that they feel happier, more independent, and freer after their divorce. For men, divorce or separation usually means they see their children far less often. Because custody of young children is more frequently awarded to mothers, fathers' interactions with their children often are disrupted due to physical separation. Booth and Amato in 1994 found that divorce was most disruptive to father-child relations when it occurred early in the child's life, which was subsequently been linked to higher rates of depression among divorced fathers than married fathers. Children of divorce are less likely to provide assistance to frail fathers than mothers. This is particularly concerning as men who do not remarry are at higher risk of cognition decline in late life. Both parental divorce and level of pre-divorce marital conflict during childhood affect offspring during the transition to adulthood. In high marital conflict families, children have higher levels of well-being as young adults if their parents divorced than if they stayed together. But in low marital conflict families, children have higher levels of well-being if their parents stayed together than if they divorced. Even in marriages that do not end in divorce, parental marital conflict is negatively associated with the well-being of offspring. Children who were already adults when their parents divorced could assess the changes in the relationship with each parent in the absence of court-imposed custody. Recent parental divorce was associated with reduced intimacy and contact between fathers and their children, but not mothers. The impact of divorced fathers negatively impacts daughters' romantic relationships in particular. Approximately 15% of non resident adult children of recent divorce saw their fathers less than once a month, which was virtually unheard of in intact families. Because their loved ones call on them when they are in crisis, middle aged adults have been called the sandwich generation, caught between the needs of adjacent generations. However, most midlife adults, though staying in touch with various generations, do not constitute a true sandwich generation because throughout midlife they are unlikely to be simultaneously caring for parents and children. Helping one generation decreases the likelihood that a midlife adult will provide assistance with the other. Some couples make the transition to parenthood in their late 30s and early 40s rather than in early adulthood. A comparison of young women aged 18 to 34, older women aged 35 to 39, and women aged 40 and higher who were having their first child found no differences in rates of preterm birth, birth weight, lower high, or in APGAR scores. However, women in the oldest group had higher rates of gestational diabetes, hypertension, and cesarean delivery. Studies of marital satisfaction, parental stress, and family functioning of delayed parents compared to on time parents suggest that older parents may be better prepared and adapt more easily to. Adolescent children have the most detrimental impact on marital satisfaction. This is particularly true among parents who experience conflict regarding their adolescent children. As children grow into adolescence, parents need to become less hierarchical and more flexible in their parenting style. Adolescents need the opportunity to make their own decisions and make their own mistakes within the safe confines of parental supervision. Parents of adolescents face continual challenges to their judgment, which often results in discomfort and conflict between the parents. Parents may revisit their own adolescent conflicts and want to prevent their children from making the same mistakes. Parents who have not lived alone with each other for years may worry about how they will get along without children. Adolescents take up a lot of space and time. Unlike younger children, they do not have a bedtime that allows parents private time. Fewer parents can even stay up as late as their teenagers do, due to circadian shifts in adolescent sleep, and because parents generally must wake early to days filled with work and family responsibilities. Relationships change as children move out to attend college or to begin their own adult lives. Parents are often pleasantly surprised when their college students with when college students call with lots to talk about. Parents sometimes continue to provide financial and emotional support for children in college and reside in what has been called semi-autonomous households because the children return for holidays, summer vacations, and whenever they feel the need. Even when the young child, even when the young adult offspring have established households of their own, parents are likely to continue to give emotional and marital support, or I'm sorry, material support. They give them money. Children moving out appears to be conducive to well-being in parents, especially mothers, and to improved marital satisfaction for the couple. It's really kind of interesting. They mentioned empty nest. It wasn't more than 10 or 20 years ago that empty nest was this huge, massive thing that they talked about, how horrible it was. But this textbook, which was printed in 2025, doesn't talk about empty nest as a negative thing. Having an empty nest typically results in time to spare, and when the children are out of college, money to spare as well. This provides midlife parents with opportunities for self development, autonomy, and time to spend with one another. When the children leave home, parents have the freedom to develop occupations or careers or to increase their commitment to those they have, and couples have the opportunity to do more things together, especially travel. Parents tend to fare best emotionally when children physically move out but remain in close contact. The parents can reorganize their time and interests but still maintain their parenting relationship. However, many young adults never leave home, or they return one or more times to the parental household, known as the boomerang phenomenon. Individuals who reached early adulthood in the 2000s and 2010s were more likely to reside with their parents than were those who came of age in the 1980s or 1990s because they remained single longer and shifts in economics made living independently financially unfeasible. So here we can see where it's more common. In Arizona, oh, there you go. It's about the same. It's what? 50 to 60%? Wow. We can see where housing is more expensive. Florida, California, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. That's New Jersey right there. There you go. Yeah. As middle aged adults become grandparents, their own parents are likely to be reaching late adulthood. Middle aged adults and their aging parents report high levels of regard, closeness, warmth, and satisfaction with their interactions. Mothers and daughters are more likely to be close than any other family combination. Daughters telephone and visit their parents more often than sons do. More highly educated aging parents have less contact with their children. Older and less healthy unmarried parents and married parents with more needs experience more contact. Those who live farthest from a child have less contact and fewer visits and telephone calls. Unmarried mothers were visited somewhat more often and called significantly more than married parents. Still, healthy aging parents tend to provide the most financial and emotional support to their children. Parents seem to give to their children in one way or another as long as they are able. When adult children have stressful problems, older parents often assume responsibility by providing care for adults with developmental disabilities, housing and financial assistance for divorcing adult children, emotional support for middle aged widowed children. This assistance can have negative impacts on physical and mental health, but may also provide benefits in the way of generativity. When aging parents need help with their own care, middle aged adult children are second only to spouses in providing care. Gender plays an important role in family caregiving. Parental care falls primarily on a particular daughter as principal caregiver if there is a daughter. Daughters are more likely than sons to help with household chores, such as food preparation and laundry, and personal care tasks that require daily hands-on assistance. When sons are primary caregivers, they are more likely to be managers of care rather than direct providers. Sibling relationships are special because they are longer lasting, more egalitarian, more sociable, and more like friendships than are other family relationships. As children, siblings are in daily contact and share a sense of family belonging. As young adults, they tend to go their separate ways, and contact is likely to be much more limited than during other phases of life. Two-thirds report feeling close or very close to the sibling with whom they have the most contact. And generally, siblings in midlife tend to have less conflict than earlier in life. Helping aging parents is a new developmental task for middle-aged siblings. Most adult children deny the parent's aging until some critical event, often a health crisis, forces a reappraisal. Increased communication about the parent's situation initially moves the siblings emotionally closer together. As the parent's needs increase to the point where the children need to provide more care, one sibling assumes the role of primary caregiver. As the parent needs more assistance, they may move in with the primary caregiver. Finally, when the parent's needs become more intense, the parent may be transferred to a long-term care facility. Parental caregiving arrangements can be a source of conflict for middle-aged siblings. About half of the families dealing with aging parents experience conflict, although much of the conflict stems from events of the past and have longer histories than did the caregiving responsibilities. Brothers and sisters often have a backlog of tensions that current issues can reawaken. The current source of conflict tends to center on the issue of whether or not a sibling has met their filial responsibilities. There is evidence that siblings very rarely explicitly negotiate the expectations of caregiving, but individuals take responsibility for caregiving duties as the need arises. Principal caregivers have difficulty with their siblings not doing their fair share, while other siblings are critical of the caregiver's performance. High levels of family conflict increase the stress and subsequent mental health problems of the caregiver. However, when siblings have good relationships, they tend to be more supportive of one another. Parental death has become a normative feature of midlife. No matter what our age, a parent's death involves many emotions because of the intensity and uniqueness of the parent-child relationship. We may feel abandoned at the loss of a parent or our first deep attachment. The process of parental loss can be particularly difficult when death was unexpected and unnatural. Bereavement, the process of getting over another person's death, elicits feelings of being alone or unattached, memories of earlier losses, guilt over unresolved conflicts or imagined wrongs, and questions concerning our purpose in life. Now, it's really kind of interesting, and I read this book. I've been around death all my life, mainly because of where I worked. And I've watched lots of people die, and I've watched how families dealt with it. And one of the things that I can tell you is an extreme reaction to death is relatively rare. Most people handle death fairly well, especially death of older individuals. When I worked in Children's Hospital in Omaha, and I watched children die of leukemia. This is before we had a good leukemia treatment program protocol. When I watched lots of children die, and they were usually under the age of 5. Anyway, when there's preparation, when it's a long-term illness, usually the individuals prepare get better prepared for the death. With older individuals, like my dad was 90, but he had been sick for 2 or 3 years. We were all prepared for that. My mother was 99, and we were all prepared for that. We were hoping she would make it to 100. She didn't quite make it. She missed it by about 6 months. But anyway, yeah, we were thinking about it. We were fairly aware that it was going to happen. She was, getting weaker and weaker all the time, and she didn't seem to find much joy in what was going on. So, yeah, I mean, it didn't really bother us that much, as strange as that may seem. Well, I guess it's not that strange. According to Dane in 1989, the mourning of middle-aged sons and daughters undergo entails three that. Okay, wait a minute, I read that wrong. According to Dane in 1989, the mourning of middle-aged sons and daughters undergo. Oh, that's not right either, is it? Well, the sentence isn't very good. It entails three tasks: stock taking, reminiscence of harsh and meaningful memories, and internalization and passage. Each of these tasks focuses on different aspects of the child's relationship to the deceased parent. Stock taking involves exploration of changes caused by the parent's death. The second task, reminiscence of harsh, meaningful memories, involves reviewing memories of events that were difficult and unfulfilling, as well as those that were wonderful and positive. The third task of bereavement, internalization, and passage involves discussion about the present without denying the past. Bereavement for a parent during middle age may promote personal growth. Parental death often provides an impetus to resolve midlife developmental tasks and promotes age-appropriate levels of maturity, responsibility, and generativity. In fact, the loss of one's last living parent can serve as an impetus for improving the relationship between midlife adults and their own children. Unresolved grief reactions include depression, thoughts of suicide, and other psychiatric symptoms. Expected deaths allow for preparatory grief and reduce the impact of the immediate loss. Adult children who have achieved mature relationships with their parents are less vulnerable when the parent dies than adult children who still look primarily to the parent for validation and support. Other factors that contributed to grief reactions were the respondent's age for initial reaction to the mother's death, with younger adults having more grief reaction. Overall, losing a mother is more detrimental than losing a father. Okay, let's stop talking about death. Let's talk about fun times. As a result of changes, midlife adults often feel less constrained than they did in their early adulthood. They find their children need them less, their parents are still relatively healthy, their work has plateaued, and they can make choices about what to do with their time. Leisure is choosing whatever activities one enjoys and participating in it. To many individuals, these new activities sound like work rather than leisure, like kayaking, which is in the picture. I wouldn't kayak because I can't swim. I've never been able to swim. Leisure includes well, actually, I passed a Red Cross class one time, but I'll tell you, it was something. They put us at the deep end of the pool, and they had us treading water for a select amount of minutes. And these other people, they're bobbing up and down, and they're barely moving their feet and their legs, and I'm just paddling like a crazy man. And yeah, I was really tired at the end because I'm a sinker, and I really have to struggle in order to stay up. Anyway, at least I passed the course, but I still can't swim. What are we doing? We're talking about leisure, aren't we? Oh, we're all done with that page. Leisure includes activities chosen freely and done for intrinsic reward or enjoyment. In contrast, a job is activity that is highly constrained and done for extrinsic reward, pay. People are most satisfied with their jobs when the jobs include larger aspects of leisure, namely discretion over time and intrinsically rewarding activities. And this is the reason I'm still working, because it's never really been work for me. Teaching is, I find it enjoyable. People are least satisfied when the job is a pure job, no discretion over time, and all extrinsic rewards. None of these definitions is based on the amount of physical energy expended. A pattern of frequent childhood leisure participation is associated with higher levels as an adult. Even within midlife, having high emotional, psychological, and social well-being early at age 42 predicted engagement in physical activity as a leisure activity later at age 50. The perception of importance of leisure activities remains stable through midlife, but the perception of ability to engage in leisure activities tends to vary, decreasing as other life expectations increase. Though there seems to be continuity in leisure pursuits, we do see reduced engagement in physical activity throughout adulthood. And I have tried to be as physical as I possibly can, even at my advanced age. This is pickleball, and it's kind of a new game. I'd never heard of it. That's a pickleball racket. And the pickleball is kind of like the old wiffle ball, but it doesn't have the wiffle ball is solid on one side and it's got holes on the other, but this is just has holes all over it. Anyway, they say it's for old people because the court's so much smaller. People who have more sedentary jobs are less likely to engage in physical activity during leisure time. Higher income, higher educational level, and higher occupational attainment all provide more options for leisure. Racial and ethnic minorities have been relatively worse off than the general population on all of these dimensions of socioeconomic status and therefore have had more limited leisure options. Individuals with lower socioeconomic status are more likely to live in neighborhoods that are considered unsafe, impeding their ability to engage in leisure in their neighborhoods. While many aspects of adulthood are continuous, aging changes activities and perspectives in several predictable ways. The demands of child rearing decrease as parents launch their children into adulthood. More leisure time results from the change in the family life cycle and from occupational changes in mid and late career stages. The death of a parent enhances awareness of one's own mortality. With late adulthood come the additional changes of retirement and even less need on the part of the adult children for assistance. Physical changes occur as well, and death approaches. A will is a legal document that can distribute property, appoint a guardian for children, provide for pets, provide for funeral and burial or cremation, and appoint an executor to oversee distribution of property. What did I learn the other day? Cremation is the most popular way of disposing of someone these days. It's like 61% or 67%. So people aren't getting buried anymore. They're getting cremated. Although many people think one needs a will only if they have property, that is not necessarily so. Adults with personal wishes that run contrary to those of their blood families or with lifestyles that are unconventional can arrange for after-death choices such as donating their body for medical research and education and provide for non-kin loved ones. If an individual is not married but cohabitates, they will need a will to ensure that their property goes to their partner rather than to their blood kin, if that is what they desire. An advance directive is a legal document specifying what medical care can be given in the event the person becomes unable to make or communicate their decisions. They allow an individual to arrange to die with dignity and to avoid expensive, invasive, and fruitless procedures. Most states have two types of advance directives. The living will notifies your physician or of your wishes regarding the withdrawal of life-sustaining equipment, even if the result is your death. A living will goes into effect only when you are unable to make or communicate your decision about your medical care and when you are in a terminal condition or permanently unconscious. I do have a living will. A durable power of attorney for health care designates a person to make medical decisions on your behalf other than the withdrawal of life support systems. The designee could decide whether to change physicians, obtain a second opinion, reject surgery, or provide physical therapy. This usually is your spouse that does this. Designating a person to make healthcare decisions may be especially important if your choices would differ from those of your blood family or if your closest relationship is one that is not legally recognized. And of course, this has to do with before gay marriage was legal. Another developmental task of midlife is planning both financially and psychologically for retirement, one of the normative life events of late adulthood. Midlife is traditionally a time of peak earning years and thus is a time to save a portion of income for the future. Somewhere between 31 and 53% of people in the United States do not have adequate savings for retirement. Midlife is a time for developing interests and activities that continue after retirement. Individuals who prepare for retirement have a better idea of their retirement needs, more favorable attitudes toward retirement, higher morale, and fewer longings for their jobs once they retire. A highly work-committed professional may avoid retirement planning and have difficulties just before and just after retirement. And that is me. And that is the end of the chapter. Next week we'll tackle my age group, the older adults. Oh, wait a minute.